Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another Benchmark Studios podcast. We're really thankful today for our guests to join us. We're going to have a discussion on leadership, among other things. We have Mark Corman, who's a retired business executive in the real estate field and now a mentor at Benchmark program, spends a lot of time with us, coaching me personally, as well as a number of other staff. Bobby Brandt, who's the CEO of Benchmark Construction, who's been with us today, or has been a supporter of Benchmark program for a long time. Actually saw us when we were back at the old gym. Has returned today just to offer some leadership perspective and just to spend some time with us. And then, of course, we have Nate Luvice at the end, who's a staff member at Benchmark program in our suspension alternative program. You've seen him here on the podcast before, but he's also been through the program, so he knows really just about everything that we do. So, guys, I'll just ask if, for our audience who might not know us, if we could just go down the line. Mark, I'll start with you and just give a quick background on who you are or anything you want to share with the listeners today before we dive into discussion.
Well, as you said in the brief introduction there, my business has been in the title insurance and real estate business here. I was very fortunate and able to retire about 13 years ago. My personal piece, as it meshed with my professional career, always had to do with helping at-risk kids and educating and mentoring. Leadership certainly is a big part of that. Those are big components of that, if you will. And now I think it's time for me to enjoy my retirement, to recreate when necessary, and give back to the community when possible.
Good stuff. Bobby?
Yeah, thanks for having me. First off, my name is Bobby Brandt, born and raised in Lancaster. As a young kid running around in Lancaster County, I always thought I would be a professional athlete, playing the NFL. And didn't recognize in my young age the professional opportunities I had when my dad started Benchmark when I was 7. And when I got the opportunity to play in the NFL with the Jets, it became very clear after a few months that the professional opportunity in the working world was going to be something that was going to be more impactful and meaningful for me in my career, which we'll come back to in that whole leadership piece. But I've been back in Lancaster since 2003, working at Benchmark full-time and enjoying all the buildings we built, but more importantly, impacting the community in a better way.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Nate?
A little background on me. My name's Nate. I'm a professional swimmer. I've swam literally my whole life. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I came through the program, worked through the program, and then Will offered me a job when I first came out of jail. I told him he didn't know what he was doing with his organization, obviously, because that was a crazy thing to do, is offer someone that just came out of jail to mentor kids. I didn't think I was fit for the job. I didn't think I could be a mentor. Obviously, I thought I needed a mentor. And got into the program. He offered me the job. I came down. I did it, fell in love with it, and worked my way through the program. And here we are today.
And that's our first lesson in leadership, right? Will saw an opportunity and took it, which most people don't see when they're not using that leadership mindset.
Yeah, definitely took a risk. Definitely took a risk. It was different. It's like I said, when he came to my house. I just had my son, and he was like, "Yeah, we want to offer you a mentor position down at Benchmark program." And I was like, "Well, I just got out of jail." He was like, "Yeah, I know." He was like, "Yeah, but we think you'll be great for it." And I said, "Well, I don't think you understand. Like, I just got out of jail. I probably need a mentor myself." And he was like, "Well, we'll see you down there Monday." He didn't give me an option. So then I came down there Monday, and I it was real easy for me to relate to the kids and talk to the kids about things that they were going through. And I seen things that I don't think they seen, or like I've been through, like some of my experiences I've already been through it, and they're going through it. So it was real easy for me to like kind of talk them through it. And then like being in certain rooms and taking what I've learned from like Will, Mark, now you, being in these rooms like this, then I can kind of like bridge the gap and kind of relate that to the kids so they can learn now. So just learning how to do that stuff. Yeah.
Bobby, this is just because we're on the topic. You have a big team, like the workforce at Benchmark is big. You guys, I assume, have taken chances with individuals and had people grow within the company. Have you seen that? Have you taken risks on team members that you've brought in?
Sure. And risk is in the eye of the beholder, right? We talk a lot about mindset and getting ready versus not ready. And I feel like, I'm going to make an assumption that most people are probably see through the lens of not ready. So if you're grading someone or looking to get someone to learn 10 skills and they've got 7 of them down, most people would say, you're not ready. We still got to work on those 3 other skills. When what we spend a lot of time on is, hey, you're doing these 7 things really well. We're going to elevate you. We're going to give you a chance, and we're going to continue to work on the 3 things that you don't do well. And we're going to figure out ways to supplement them, whether with its other team members or with learnings, teachings, educations. But it's always, you have to have that getting ready mindset because, and it's like anything. When you buy a red truck and you think it's the only red truck in town, and then you drive around and you see red trucks everywhere. It's the same thing. If you're mentoring, coaching someone, and you're constantly talking about the 3 things they don't do well, then that's what they're seeing. So it's, for me, taking a risk on someone isn't about blind faith. It's about calculated, hey, we've gotten to where we can get to. The next 3 or 4 things that you need to learn can only be done if you have the job or you're put in the place to learn how to do them.
That's a good example of a belief that a leader can make anyone better if you invest in that person. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Making a real investment in that guy, knowing that he's accomplished 7 of those things. Those other 3 will come. They might take work, but they're going to come, and I'm going to invest myself in you to make sure that happens.
And hey, sometimes the only way you're going to figure out a couple of those things is by screwing it up a couple times. And if you don't give them the chance to lead the group or the project or the mission or whatever it may be, when are they ever going to get that shot?
That's right. It's really important for people to be able to manage their own position and take a look at themselves as if they are their own boss first.
That's right.
And that's how they can get the most out of it and accomplish things that perhaps they didn't think they could with a little bit of coaching, a little bit of encouragement, obviously the educational foundation of that. That's when you do that and the people achieve that, nobody will be a greater defender of you as the leader. They'll stand in front of bullets for you. Because you have made that investment.
Sure.
What happens on the other side then? Like on the other side of that, if what happens, they got these 7 great things that they're doing, and these 3 things that they're not doing. You put them in that position, and they don't learn it. What happens then? And how often does that happen in the workplace?
So I would say that isn't the norm, but it happens.
Yeah.
People. Whatever it may be, let's just take conflict, like can't handle conflict or can't, make the ask.
Right.
Whatever it may be that the person can't do. In our business, we have plenty of success stories where we've had people get promoted into positions where it wasn't a great fit. And what we like to do is give them the opportunity to tell their story, right? Instead of a demotion email or all of a sudden, Johnny's not coming to that meeting anymore.
Right.
We just talk through with the employee, like, how do you want to handle it? How do you want to tell your story? And sometimes it's, hey, this position wasn't right for me. I got more satisfaction out of working direct with the people on the line or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And let them sort of set the narrative for their shift.
Right.
And then, sometimes, you make a bad call on people and they don't have it and they move on. And what we like to do at Benchmark is help people find the best landing spot.
Right.
So we spend a lot of time with our people that will resign or want another position in supporting that, connecting dots, putting them in touch with people, making sure that they're not just out the front door.
Right.
Yeah, I think when we have a pretty young workforce at Benchmark, and one thing that we've talked about and haven't nailed yet, candidly, is helping someone understand where it's okay to fail and then where the line is. Because in every business, we have a line. Our line is if you do anything that puts a kid at risk, that's the line. Outside of that, there's some areas where it's okay to fail. Like this can be a learning area. And there's some, though, that you you don't want people to step on a landmine in your business, because that's partially their fault, but also your fault as the employer. So we struggle with that. How can we let someone know this is your playground where it's okay to make mistakes? If you trend over here, though, you're in murky water.
Look, we have a great culture in terms of feedback, whether it's in real time, whether it's in our quarterly reviews. So our folks know where they stand on any given day. And I would say 99% of the time they make the strides to support their weaknesses, whether through their own growth or finding a teammate that can plug in and do that work for them.
Right.
I am not an operations guy. I have a hard time getting anything done. Operationally, construction, just the way my brain works, I have a great COO, and he picks up that slack for me. And he has more of a challenge mindset-wise to letting go and having that getting ready mindset, and I work him out hard on that. And it's a yin and a yang, right? It takes great teams it takes a village, as they say.
What does I'm curious to know, like what do those meetings look like? Like as far as like giving someone constructive criticism, or however you want to call it, just like addressing a conflict. Like what does that look like in the work?
Well, like anything, if you want to bench 315 pounds, you got to practice.
Right.
You got to do it a lot. So having hard conversations about performance is not easy, and it gives you that pit in your stomach. And that we talk a lot about at Benchmark. That pit in your stomach is your body telling you to do something, right?
Yeah.
So you can retreat or you can step in.
Right.
So we want people to step in. You got to have grace and humility. You got to be vulnerable. I've had many conversations where in the middle of it, I'm like, whoa, hey, man, this conversation isn't going the way I wanted it to. The way I'm thinking versus the words coming out of my mouth are not matching up.
Right.
So I need to start over. What I said here is probably not resonating and landing well. So you just have to give grace to that. And you have to be able to say, hey, and even when you're learning how to do it, I talk a lot about like, hey, tell the person you're about to have the conversation with, this is going to be a tough conversation. I'm probably going to screw it up, but it's coming from a place of goodness, and it's coming from a place of support and wanting you to grow in your career. So this may take some iterations to get there.
Right. I think that's important.
I think everything that Bobby said, certainly, but that conversation, that difficult conversation, shouldn't come as a surprise to that employee. He should know that he's not succeeding before I have to tell him he's not succeeding.
Right.
You know, and you don't bat 1,000. I wish you did. I wish everybody you invested in became the best employee at the best task that you desire, that you can envision. But it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes you have to realize that as the leader, one of your prime responsibilities is creating the culture, creating the environment for people to thrive in. While you're fussing with this guy who's not getting these other three over and over, these other people are here looking and say, wait a second, our standards have lowered. This guy isn't succeeding, but he's still here. He's still in that position.
Right.
So there are times when you owe it to everyone else to do the most uncomfortable thing with the guy that you're working with.
And if you're doing it regularly and you're giving people feedback in the spot, like if something happens in a meeting or a weightlifting session or whatever it is that you guys are doing, if you see something, like, and then you got to know the person. Is it a better place to do it in the moment publicly? Is it better to pull them aside after?
Right.
Follow up is key. If you have and look, feedback, whether the person knows, most 10 out of 10, they know there's an issue, but feedback's tough. So the first 24 hours is really important.
Right.
I check in, text my guys or gals at home, and I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? And just to let them know you care.
Yeah.
And then the next day or within 48 hours, you have to follow up and you have to continue the conversation and then reiterate, look, failure is part of learning. We don't talk about right and wrong at Benchmark. We talk about decision velocity. If you're a good baseball player, what's your batting average? 30? 300?
300 would be great.
That's 30% of the time you hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about how many times you get on base. It's about, or how many times you make a right decision. It's the confidence to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah,
and
good.
decision velocity, make decisions. What I see a lot in our business is our team members their confidence gets hurt, and then they just stop making decisions. Indecision is the worst. I can fix a wrong decision. I can't fix indecision. So you got to get really good at building the confidence so people are continually making decisions because, hey, look, every decision advances the ball. Is it forward? Is it backwards? Is it as far as you wanted it to go? Is it not? Like, you have to be able to see that and continue to make decisions.
And you being a leader, like how does that look like for you, right? So if you make the wrong decision, everyone's looking at you. So are you like, can you be vulnerable enough and transparent to let the team know? And how important is that as a leader to let the team know that you made the wrong decision?
Very important.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to. Hey, you got to own your smiles and you got to own your cries, man. You know.
Yeah.
And what I first thought of when you asked that question is, when you have a really good team, a wrong decision, which I hate. Right, I hate absolutes, right and wrong, true and false. Like, there is no absolute; it just is.
Right.
Right. So how are you going to move on from what is? We don't get into the like, hey, I made a bad call. It's more like, we didn't push this in the right direction. We are going to collectively fix it.
Right.
It's Bobby. It's a pretty strong culture that sets the tone at Benchmark that we need to make decisions quickly, and if you make one wrong, don't stop. You just keep making decisions. We can work on that. So you, as the leader, what's your role in that culture? There's a lot of people that work at Benchmark Construction.
Yeah.
How do you?
Oh man, I mean, we do a lot of things. I meet with every new employee.
You meet with every new employee.
Yep.
Like,
How
they
many
get
employees
time?
do you have?
225, changing every day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So they all get time with the top leader.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see any other way, right? I mean,
What do you talk about with them?
I have a little slide presentation. I call it the Benchmark Way. It's about our values. It's about our core commitment. It's about the things that I think are important. And it's more about just learning about them. Like, what's your story? Who are you? Where have you been? What are you excited about? What are you nervous about?
I always felt it was important to meet with every new employee as well. And we'd have a nice little conversation. But the message was, and this was a direct, I know what your job is. I need you to understand what my job is.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would lead to the conversation of, my job's to help you be successful. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. I mean, there's a lot of people around here. It's my job. If we're all successful, we're all going to do well. And by the way, it's not that noble. I'm going to do okay too.
Yeah,
So
I talk
let's be
about
part of the team. Know that I'm
Absolutely.
on your team.
In construction, I talk about action, urgency, follow through, and care. We're an action-oriented business, so if you're not someone that can create action, probably in the wrong spot. With action, then you need urgency, because if you create a bunch of action and do nothing, like, we have a problem. So you have to have urgency to want to move the ball along the field, the basketball court, whatever it may be. Then you have to follow through. Like, we're a service business, right? We don't make anything. We work with a lot of subcontractors, architects, owners. So we sort of we orchestrate that chaos. So there's a ton of follow through. You've heard it before. If you're not over communicating, you're not communicating. And then lastly, I think that the thing that is missed in construction and probably generally in business is care. If you can't put your arms around it, if you can't create a bunch of high performers that most importantly have everyone's back, that makes the work really hard.
I just have to ask a broad question because as I listen to you talk, I'm wondering, who taught you how to be a good leader, Bobby? How did you these are like I've been writing down some of these rules, or things you've been saying, but I'm wondering, how did you learn this stuff? Or you've been practicing it a while, but who taught you?
I don't know. I think generally speaking, my personality lends itself to the things I'm talking about. I was always the calm person. Like, I don't get too overly excited and I don't get too down. I used to be a stress eater, so I used to tell my team, if I show up to a meeting with a bag of McDonald's, you're all in trouble. But I don't know specifically. I mean, I think it's just how I was made. My father, Mark, who I'm sure you've met before, is a big personality, more of the hero, wants to swoop in, fix it, and leave. So I recognized early in my career he wasn't a great mentor. He didn't have the patience to teach me anything, so I had to get mentorship from multiple people. My dad was a big yeller and screamer, and I get it. Look, starting a business in the construction industry is hard. You have to be dogged. You have to be, you have to get after it. But now, as a company, we're grown to where we have an ecosystem, right? We can take care of each other, so it's a different type of leadership. I think my biggest experience was in college. I transitioned from tight end to offensive line, and our coach at the time had coached in the NFL for a long time. Coach at LSU, won a national championship, had a lot of great all-pro players, and he was the most positive person I ever experienced. If I had a bad practice on a Wednesday, he put his arm around me and he'd be like, "Bobby, guess what the great news is today?" He's like, "It's not Saturday. Don't do that on Saturday."
Yep, you could do it again.
Everything he taught us, our footwork, learning plays, the leadership lessons were all from a place of positivity. To your point, Mark, he took A players, made them all pro, B players, made them A players, so forth and so on. My senior year, our coaching staff got let go, and a new staff came in, and they led, with iron fist and a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, a lot of pointing out all of the things you did incorrectly. And we had our offensive line, our previous year was best in the country. I mean, led the Big Ten in rushing, and all of our offensive linemen teammates all went on to play in the NFL. So it just and that senior year, that coaching staff totally, like, we didn't even, halfway through the season, we didn't even want to play. So that reflection for me really taught me the importance of positivity, vulnerability, giving grace, and growing capacity and competencies, not beating on people for the mistakes they've made.
What a contrast. It's neat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the power of sports, to help us learn early leadership lessons. You just happen to get both the positive and the negative in 2 years. When you played on beyond college ball, were there more good examples of leadership, or? The NFL, I had the privilege of having a cup of espresso in the NFL. It went very quickly. And that's a privilege.
Well, it's better than most, right?
Yeah.
So I learned, I think my experience in the NFL was about the importance of owning your own destiny. As a rookie free agent, very early in camp, I recognized that if you played well, the starters would stay in. They would take reps from you. Preseason games, it was hard to get in the game. because once you have game tape, then you can be evaluated. I learned how cutthroat the NFL is, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, these pros that have been in the league for a long time, getting paid millions of dollars, recognize the fact that if I'm better at $275,000 a year, is way more attractive than that $5 million salary. So I had a lot of insights in terms of how you hold yourself, how you advocate for yourself, how no one else is going to do it for you. You got to figure it out. You got to create that action. You got to create the space where you can go be successful.
And when you came back here and came to work at Benchmark, what was the transition like? What was the first role? What started the journey?
I started as a assistant project manager. I didn't go to school for construction, so the first 5 years of my career was just learning. To master anything, it takes 10,000 hours. There's 2,080 working hours in a year, so it takes 5 years to master anything at a minimum, right? Yeah. Now you can fast forward that by working more, reading more, learning more. So the first 5 years was just figuring it out. The next 10, maybe the next 8 was learning who I was. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a privileged family, and probably for the second 5 years of my career, I took advantage of that more than I should have. And then I recognized that maybe my dad wasn't the best coach. I insisted on an executive level coach after 15 years in the business. I ran into a lady by the name of Lois Doslick, who you worked with.
I did.
I mean, she beat me down for 2 or 3 years. And really that time is what transformed me into, I always knew I had that leadership thinking, but I couldn't figure out a way to get it out. Yeah. I spoke from the heart instead of from the brain. I spoke first. I didn't listen first. And she taught me how to recognize those skills. And ever since, I've been reading, learning, coaching, trying to understand that world of leadership.
What do you mean she taught you to you were speaking from the heart, she taught you to speak from the brain?
Well, when you're emotionally charged, you speak and sometimes you don't make sense. Or to the point about feedback, you say something, you're like, that's not what I meant. Right. And to be able to sit around in a meeting or wherever you are and convey intelligence and thought and direction and motivate people, you have to listen. It's like seek first to understand and formulate your message and your direction. And that just doesn't happen because you're sitting in the room. That happens because you're putting effort into it.
Yep. And
controlling your emotion and being able to recognize when you're emotionally charged and be able to reset and ask better questions and be curious. That's what I learned.
If
it was in me, I just didn't know I didn't have the right tools to really mine it out to be able to put it to use.
I think a big part of effective leadership is having what you call emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And that's understanding who you are so that you can best relate to others. If I have the same issue with Nate as I have with Bobby, I might approach it differently because Nate's a different person. And I know Nate's a different person. I know how to relate to Nate. I know how to relate to Bobby, but they're two different ways. Right. So being sensitive to that, I think, is maybe is part of what Bobby's talking about.
Yeah.
We had a conversation before we started today. When you're emotional about something, write it down. Go to sleep and read it the next morning.
Yeah. Don't send it.
Don't send it. And I think you accomplish a great deal doing that exercise.
Patience.
I really do.
Patience.
But one of the things that, as you mentioned Lois's name, I think her mantra was a leader must envision the future. It's your job to have the vision. It's your job, however you construct that vision, but it's your vision. You're the leader of that company. And in order to achieve that vision, there are certain milestones we have to achieve along the way. And these are the milestones. And as the leader, every time I get in front of everybody, I'm talking about that compelling message. That's what's most important, is accomplishing what we see our future to be. And what's your part of it? And those kinds of things. That's where the motivational thing comes from. Communication is currency. It absolutely is. If you're not over communicating, I think is the way Bobby said it, you're not communicating.
Right.
And boy, is that true. People have to know it. They have to sleep on it. They have to sleep in it. And then they become part of the team.
I think, like you talked about envisioning like the future, right? I got a question. I asked Mark this before too, when we were going to a museum. You've created success for yourself, right? And how do you continue to create success for yourself? Like, how do you continue to keep doing it? How does the goalpost move, and how do you just continue to be successful? I think it's hard to be successful, let alone just one time, but doing it over and over and over again. What does that take? What does that look like? How do you do it? Because it's not just a one-time thing.
No, it isn't a one-time thing. I think we all need goals. To me, goals represented my growth. So once you achieve this, what's next? And then again, to keep focused on that, set those milestones. It's the same mechanics. I think that, the old adage of it, when you ride a bike, you got to move forward to be on the bike. You can't go backwards. You can't stay still. You fall over.
Right.
So you got to constantly be moving forward, and that's what gets you moving. I just wanted to make half a comment about what you were talking about earlier about empowering people to make decisions and quick decisions. We lived, and one of the signs that was on my desk was a good decision today is often better than a great decision tomorrow.
No doubt. Don't let good get in the way of great.
That's it.
Or don't let good get in the way of perfect.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of people like that fully baked plan, and then they ruminate for days, and it's like, well, game over.
Yeah.
Next.
Perfect is paralyzing.
Yes.
Bobby, I have a question just about the industry, leadership, and some ties into goals a little bit. I haven't read this book yet, so full disclaimer, but the title of the book hit my recommended reading list, and it said, Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And it's a business book, and it's about how, there's a number of messages, but from what I understand, it's about picking our competitors carefully and whether or not that's important to you and your own business's goals, or just don't worry about anything that's happening out there. You focus on you. What's your school of thought on that in terms of the goals? Do you guys, this is construction industry. There's a lot of competition.
For me, I don't spend a lot of time on my competition. We're focused internally and on our team. What we do focus a lot of time on is what do we do well and where can we be successful, and then that's what we focus on. Understanding, like in any particular project, if we're going after a project, I want to know who we're competing against, because I know inherently what how my competition may respond, or I may know a pursuit may not be worth it based on the competition that is being selected to compete for the project. We don't have like an executive team member responsible for each one of our competitors and understanding who their executive team is or their strategy. Like that, to me, that's wasted energy. We want to pour that energy back into our team, and if we do what we say we're going to do, we'll continue to have success.
It's like focus on your own plate.
That's right.
You got your own plate to worry about.
Yeah, and the reality is, as the leader, you don't need to worry about it because some of the people under you are going to tell you what your competition's doing.
Yeah, we all talk.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I growing up in the business and then working in the business, my dad and previous executive teams were hyper focused on the competition, and I don't see I don't see the value. And look, they were also very. It was a very competitive group. Like none of the business owners wanted to talk to the other business owners. I just have a different approach. Like I'd joint venture with a local contractor tomorrow if the opportunity is right. I get along with my competition for the most part. I mean, losing sucks. Don't get me wrong. You know, and we win. I mean, we track our win rate. It's usually somewhere between 30 and 35%. So you know, we lose a lot.
Pretty high.
You know, but my again that mindset piece, getting ready versus not ready. Like next shot's going in, man. Always. Never a hesitation.
Do you think it'll change though? Like, what if you did focus on the competition? Your losing rate or your win rate right now is 35%. What if you did focus on competition? Would that? Do you think you could win more if you focused on competition just a little bit?
From what perspective? I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it's like I'm going to worry about the things I can control.
Right. Control the controllable.
If I know all kinds of stuff about another contractor in Lancaster, what's it doing for me?
Right.
They get to, you know, I don't know. I don't see the value.
Yeah. I agree. Focus on your own plate.
No,
Control the
yeah,
control.
that's good.
We teach a lesson on it, and the suspension alternate program, SBSB program, it's called Control the Controllables, and we're not worried about anything that anyone else is doing because we can't control that. What we can control is our attitude, our effort, what we're doing over here, so that we can be successful. It doesn't make sense to
We have a card. We have a card that we handed out a long time ago. We haven't handed them out in a long time, but attitude is everything.
Right.
What's a one thing you can control?
Yeah.
Your attitude.
I had to learn that too, because there would be some situations that get me upset, and I would let it.
Forgiveness is the most powerful thing I think in humanity.
Yeah.
If someone comes up to you when you walk out this front door and punches you in the face, you don't have to punch them back. You can say, "I feel sorry for you. You know, I forgive you."
I hope I get there one day.
Yeah.
Somebody
But seriously, like think of the like. I think in Lancaster County we have a great gift with the Amish. The Amish have the power of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, nickel mines.
Yeah.
A bunch of girls got murdered by some crazy dude. What was that? 15 years ago. As the story was breaking,
Yeah.
the families of the Amish girls that were murdered were walking to the wife of the man who killed them to her house to tell her they forgive her.
That's wild.
Because when you harbor anger, that's you.
Yeah.
That's messing up your insides. That's
100%.
your body ain't operating right.
Right. And you're not thinking straight.
Forgiveness puts it back on them.
Right.
Ask them, like, who taught you how to act like that?
Yeah.
Like, where did you learn to do that?
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Right.
It strikes me, Bobby, that it's tough from a leadership perspective to get that forgiveness component into, we live in a culture where our HR departments are very strong. And there's a this, and this equals that.
Yep.
And sometimes forgiveness goes counter to that. How do you build that into your culture and teach people on your team, look, we got to give this another shot?
That's a hard one. I mean, hey, look, and all these things I'm telling you, like Benchmark isn't some panacea. Like it isn't some rainbows and unicorns. Man, we have our issues.
Yeah.
Look, we have the same amount of issues that any other company has. We just look at it from a culture and a mindset of growth. When there are issues on our jobs, do you want to have that collaborative, high-performing team, have each other's back approach, or do you want to have stabbing everybody in the back, I'm in it for myself type approach? So it's I don't have the data, but I would imagine that we have the same problems everybody else does. We just dealing with it differently. What was your question?
I was asking about how forgiveness blends or doesn't blend with the HR stuff. It's like,
well, look, we have a director of training and development. We have a director of recruiting. and retention. And we have a benefits coordinator and handles all of our compensation. We don't have a true HR specialist or director. All of our HR is handled at if you manage people at Benchmark, you're considered part of our Benchmark leadership team. There's like 70 of us.
70.
Yeah, I mean, superintendents.
Sure.
You might be in charge of one person, but you're in that mix. And the things I've been speaking about today is how we handle HR at that level. And we deal with people on a personal level. Like, it's not go see the HR department. I don't ever want that in our business.
I'm not sure I would address it as forgiveness as much as if you create the environment and encourage people to make decisions and manage their own desks, you have to be willing to say you can make a mistake.
Yeah.
I would much rather see you make a mistake, as you talked about earlier, than not make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the culture, it's not about forgiveness. It's about, okay,
Yes.
let's learn from, if you make the same mistake 3 times, it's a whole different issue. But when you're doing the best you can and it's well-intentioned and it just didn't turn out to be the way you hoped it would, let's take a half a step back. We'll take a look at it. If we'd have gone this way, what would have happened? Mm-hmm. Sort of a decision tree analysis is the way I used to call it.
It's not about right and wrong. It's not about winning
That's right.
and losing. For me, we talk about winning and learning, period.
And thinking. And thinking.
Winning and learning.
Have you ever learned anything from winning something? I mean, maybe you did, how to celebrate.
Yeah.
But you really learn when you screw something up.
You lose. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Or you didn't make the shot. And I got to work harder.
Yeah.
I've got another. This is about time and how we focus on what we do in a regular day as a leader. This comment I heard at one point, and I reflect back to it a lot. They say, well, the leader should be focused on the biggest, most threatening, most serious problems on a daily basis, because those are the big threats. So the leader needs to spend their time focused on those things, whatever they are for you and your business. But then I hear leaders like you talk, Bobby, and I think Bobby's having fun. He's imbued this culture of positivity. You can't be sitting in your office all day focused on the biggest, nastiest threats. So what's your day look like? What do you focus on? I'm not sure I see that. Like, oh, yeah, you got to just stay focused on the big, nasty things.
Yeah, I've never approached it from trying to identify, like, these big threats. Like, we have all kinds of things we've got to address. We have a pretty significant challenge on a project that I am the lead on. And that is a grind. And that's probably taken 25% of my time at the moment. Construction industry is growing in lean thinking, lean manufacturing that Toyota started however long ago. And that way of constructing, lean construction practices, is a big shift that only a few do well in our industry, in this region. And that is a big initiative internally that we are beginning to kick off. And I'm right in there, you know.
You believe in that?
I'm in it. It is, but it is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Our culture, our mindset, the people first approach is very much lean. It is to the core, it's the person installing the work. Like, they know how to do it, get them engaged. So we're making a big push into that. I'm spending a lot of time with that. Yeah. But the cultural, like Mark said, the constant chanting of the things that are important.
Yeah. That's where you spend your time.
I do. And those big, I just like the whole concept of thinking about the big threats, and like, to me, that is a not ready mindset. That's a fixed mindset. I don't want to spend my time ruminating on what could be. I spend my time on the things I think that are important, and then when things come up, we address them.
We've been in the heavy stuff about leadership, so I want to just give a chance to talk about the things you do for fun outside of work, Bobby. Like, there's a big job on your plate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. I mean, I assume you're not working 100 hours a week. You must do some stuff for fun.
Well, we have a house in Avalon.
Okay.
Spend some time there. My son, Bobby, is about to turn 16. I'm the third, by the way. He's the fourth.
Okay.
I always told my dad I would name him the fourth. I didn't want to get written out of the will.
Important.
No, that's a bit of a joke, but seriously, that's why I did it. He is on the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing team. So we spend a lot of time traveling with him. My daughter is all me. She got my size and athletic ability and plays a lot of AU basketball. So we're traveling, feels like every weekend.
I can't wait.
You have a little one.
Yeah, I got my son. He's real big, though. He's 6 years old. He looks like he's like 8, 9 years old.
Yep.
And plays every sport. So I can't wait for that, to feel like I'm traveling every weekend and going out and seeing them.
Be careful what you wish for.
A little bit, right? It's expensive now. It's expensive now.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I enjoy art and music. I tried that sort of is in the back seat at the moment. I shouldn't say collect wine. I like to drink wine, so I've spent a lot of time in that arena.
Yeah.
I work out a lot.
Okay, because you're your benchmark, I have to ask. Tell us about your workout routine now. And how has it changed from?
Well, look, I worked out obviously all through high school and college. Yeah. And when I got out of sports, or when sports got out of me, said it was over. You were going to ask the question, like,
I was going to ask, what's the worst? In your training? What was the worst thing you had?
I just hated training. Period. I hated working out. You had to do it if you wanted to play.
Yeah.
I hated doing curls.
I
hate bicep curls. They're the worst. And you got the guy that looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane, over there freaking doing curls in the mirror, and I was just like, that's dumb. Yep. I'm not doing that. But so when I got back here, I barely worked out. And I ebbed and flowed from 250 to 320 for the past probably 20 years of my life. And recently I started taking those weight loss shots, Mounjaro, about 2.5 years ago, lost almost 100 pounds. But what I recognized was it just doesn't take the fat off, it takes everything off. And I had no lean muscle. So I started training 2 years ago with a trainer. I'm working out 3-4 times a week, and it has, in terms of all the things they say, getting all those juices flowing in your body and getting you up and getting the blood flowing and the endorphins. It's been awesome.
You a morning workout guy or a evening workout guy?
I'm in the gym sometime between 5 and 7:30.
Really?
Depending on my schedule.
How about your sleep? Do you have your sleep
That's
dialed
a problem I got to figure out. Big problem. And I don't know what it is.
Do you need? Or is it because you're staying up late because you got stuff to do, or you just stay up?
I think I just don't sleep well. Number one. Truth be told, I probably shouldn't have that extra glass of wine at night, because alcohol plays a huge component in how you sleep. And I had a sleep study. I forget Andy Kaupin. You know that name? Mm-mm. He trains like, the top 50 athletes in all sports: racing, Olympics, NFL. And I got the privilege of seeing him speak a year or so ago, and he had just started this program for anyone. You pay a couple bucks to do a blood test, and they start trying to track all these things, sleeping most important. And what he said was, like, if you don't sleep well, forget about all the rest. Sleep is number one most important. So I haven't found the time and energy for it yet, but that's my next
You're going to
thing
dial
I
that
need
in.
to figure it out.
It's probably why I'm not a professional athlete. I don't sleep very well.
Yeah, sleeping. I sleep. I go to sleep fine.
Is that all? Is that the only reason?
That's it. That's it.
I go to sleep fine, and I sleep I get 8 hours, if not more. But it's just not good sleep.
What if you two, both of you in your athletic prime, ran into each other on a football field? What would happen?
He was on O-line. I was on O-line. We'd be friends. I would never
Best
see
friends.
him.
You would never see him.
He's on offensive line. I was on offensive line. I played nose, so even if I did play, I wouldn't have seen him, unless he like pulled or something and had a back block and he met me, and that probably would have been
Where
nice.
we would meet would be like Bull of the Ring. We would meet in like Bull of the Ring in practice.
Yeah, something like
And then
that.
it'd be,
I
be a
would.
battle to the death.
It would be a battle to the death.
Yep.
It would be because he was big, but I got leverage. I was short, so I'm under him. But he was
Is that
strong.
how it works?
I mean, that's how I think it works. That's what the coach always told me, leverage.
I've always recognized that the people that talk are usually the ones that can't get it done.
If only we could only see.
All right. Well, to be sensitive of Bobby's time, Bobby, just if I could ask in closing, if some of our students are watching who are at the beginning of their leadership journey, they're young adults trying to figure things out, any recommendations for them in closing about how they could develop as leaders, stuff they could read, stuff they could do?
Hey, look, I think there was a lot of good points said at the table today. I mean, being curious. I think the minute you determine that you figured it out or you have all the answers, you're done. So constant pursuit of knowledge is, I think, what's important. I do believe that vulnerability is very important to success in leadership. And Brene Brown, wrote a book.
Dare to
She
Lead.
basically discovered vulnerability, or I shouldn't say discovered it. She put it in context that made it understandable. And yeah, Dare to Lead.
Dare to Lead.
And then Daring Greatly are two phenomenal books.
Good plug, because our students could pick those up and read them. And it's not a popular, it is now becoming popular, but it wasn't always the popular perspective on leadership. So thanks for sharing.
You vulnerability, it has this connotation of less than. And especially in sports and construction, where you're like the macho man, right? I mean, vulnerability, what? Like, we all have our issues. We all have our challenges. So the quicker you can recognize them and find a team that's willing to support them, that's leadership.
Excellent.
I think one of the things that they need to understand is that preparedness allows you to recognize opportunity. And that preparedness and opportunity together gives you the opportunity to move forward. That's when you grow. That's when luck happens.
Mm-hmm.
We had a saying back in the day at Benchmark: proper preparation prevents poor performance.
5 P's or
One more
something like
time?
that, right?
Yeah.
One more
Add
time.
another. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
5 P's.
Very good. Very good.
Mark told me there was no such thing as luck. When I first met him, Mark was like, "There's no such thing as luck."
You know what luck? You know what the definition of luck is, right? You don't?
Mm-mm.
It's the crossroads of hard work and opportunity.
That's basically what he told me. No such thing as luck. He said either you're prepared and there's an opportunity and you get it, but he said there's no such thing as like luck. Like, you don't just
Not
get
unless you
lucky.
win the Powerball.
Right.
That's about the only place luck wins.
And you got a better chance of, we teach a lesson about that too. It's called it's a millionaire lesson, and in the lesson we talk about a statistic, and you get better off. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than winning the lottery. And how many people do you know that got struck by lightning? Exactly. So stop betting and go do some hard work.
Well, guys, thanks for your time today. Bobby, thanks for coming in.
You bet.
This
Thank
was
you.
really cool. We hope you'll come back sometime and share some more with us so we can check in with you again in the future. But thanks for being here today.
You
It means
bet.
a lot.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.